So the Ravens are going to move to 3-5. The Dolphins are going to go to 2-7. Mike McDaniel is going to get fired. Tua Tagovailoa's future is going to be in question. What the Dolphins decide to do next is going to be interesting because Tua and McDaniels have had their careers connected. Remember, Tua was bullied by Brian Flores, and then in came Mike McDaniels, who believed he could get Tua to play at a high level, and he did. He got Tua to a Pro Bowl. He had the Dolphins competing in the playoffs for multiple years. They won 10-plus games. And now they're coming off of a year where they missed the playoffs and then go into this year to be 2-7. It's looking like this is going to be the end of the road for Mike McDaniel. But what do you do with Tua, who has shown you what he's capable of? Is he just one of those quarterbacks that's capable of playing at a high level when everything is going perfect around him? Is that the same with Brock Purdy and some other quarterbacks, that when the situation is perfect, he can do it? But when you need him to put the team on his back and say, let's go, is he one of those quarterbacks that is not able to do that? I mean, you've already got him under contract. Mike McDaniels pounded the table for Tua to get this contract. So if you get rid of one, do you have to get rid of the other? Do you do what the Denver Broncos did and just eat the $144 million of dead cap?
With the biggest dead cap hit to an NFL team in the history of the NFL.
And say, we don't care. It's a really loaded quarterback draft, and we're going to try to get our quarterback of the future. And if you do that, do you give Mike McDaniels an opportunity to pick his own quarterback? Because Mike McDaniels didn't pick Tua. He inherited Tua. So if you're going to fire Mike McDaniels and keep Tua, wouldn't that seem like the wrong order? Wouldn't it be you fire or get rid of Tua and keep Mike McDaniels, and then if he doesn't have success with his hand-picked quarterback, you decide to cut ties with him? This is one of the reasons I actually love the Giants not parting ways with Brian Daboll at the end of last year. It didn't work out with Daniel Jones, which now looks like a major question mark. But remember, last year, Daniel Jones went on to the Minnesota Vikings, and Kevin O'Connell also got rid of Daniel Jones. So it's not like just Daboll that did it. Multiple head coaches that we hold in high regard decided to part ways with Daniel Jones. But outside of that, I love that the Giants said, hey, we're going to give Brian Daboll the opportunity to pound the table for the quarterback he wants. Because just like Mike McDaniel didn't pick Tua, Daboll didn't pick Daniel Jones. He inherited Daniel Jones, and he got him to the playoffs, and he even won a playoff game with him. But then that success kind of fizzled out, and that is exactly what happened with Mike McDaniels and Tua. He inherited Tua. He took a quarterback that had no success, got him to a 10-win type of performance, playing at a Pro Bowl caliber level, but ultimately it wasn't sustainable, and it was almost like they caught a spark but couldn't hold on to the flame. And look at what Daboll's done with his hand-picked quarterback with Jackson Dart. All of a sudden, Jackson Dart's looking like an absolute steal. He's got everything that you want out of your franchise quarterback. And in a year where everything is seeming to be like over for the Giants, right? They're not a serious contender. The Giants can at least go to bed at night knowing they have their quarterback, and they have Brian Daboll to thank for that. Because you can build around a team with a franchise quarterback. What you can't do is have a quarterback that is not truly a franchise quarterback, pay him like a superstar, and then try to build a superstar team around him. You just can't do it. You have to have a rookie quarterback that is the franchise, and then you can build around him, or a true Patrick Mahomes that you pay, and you can settle for having a bunch of wide receiver threes around him, because Mahomes is going to get the most out of those players. But we know that you can't overpay for mediocre at the quarterback position as Tua throws another interception. This one being returned to the 20, to the 30, to the 40. Thought about sliding, then he finally goes out of bounds at the 40. There's a flag, but it looks like it came in on the return. We know that overpaying for mediocre at the quarterback position never has brought in a Super Bowl to any team. It does not work. You can get to a Super Bowl with a mediocre quarterback as long as you pay him like a mediocre quarterback and invest in the defense and superstars. But this is where the Dolphins are at right now, and I think it's only fair to Mike McDaniels that they go into this offseason with a top 5 pick, which is where this team is headed. And they say, all right, Mike, pick your quarterback. Tua's going to be the backup for whatever quarterback you pick. We can try to trade Tua if he has any value. We don't know. We're okay with just keeping him on the bench because a rookie quarterback is going to be super cheap. We'll look at the numbers. If we can cut him now and save money by 2027, maybe they look at doing it. But regardless, I think the right thing to do is to go ahead and give Mike McDaniels the opportunity to pick his own quarterback and see what he can do from there. Look at what that's done for the Giants. I mean, you could fumble the next 10 years away looking for a quarterback. The Broncos went through so many Brett Rippins and Case Keenums and Joe Flacco's and quarterbacks that if I named, you wouldn't even know, right? Brandon Allen. And then finally, Sean was like, Bo Nix. And it all ended. But this, if the Dolphins aren't careful, this is just the beginning of the next 10 years. So what is one more year of saying, hey, with all the stuff that we don't like about Mike McDaniels, right? His leadership in question, his ability to lead a team at the head coach position. The one things we know about McDaniels is that he's a great offensive coach. I mean, we've seen Mike McDaniels make this team a very high-scoring offense, most yards, most points. And I know Dolphin fans right now, and as I say that, I got a lot of friends and family in Miami. This message just came in. Please have Tua and McDaniels watch football from the couch after this game. I just don't think that's the right move. It's the same thing with the quarterback position, right? Daniel Jones went out there against the Vikings on the road and he beat them. And like we saw Daniel Jones look like a superstar in that game. Shane Steichen was smart enough to go, hey, can I have the tape for the wild card round between the Giants and the Vikings? Take that son of a gun home, put it in, pour a glass of whiskey. He's sitting there watching this, rewinding it, watching it, rewinding it, going, hey, man, I don't know what's gone on in the last couple of years, but this guy is capable at playing at a really high level. Look at this throw. Look at this throw. Look at the moment. I mean, this is a playoff game on the road in Minnesota. And he said, I want to see if we can get that version of him every single week. And now Daniel Jones is top 5 in MVP voting. And he should be 1 or 2. And I'll tell you, if it were Mahomes or Josh Allen operating the offense the way Daniel Jones is, Daniel Jones would be the front runner at minus 250 to win MVP. But hopefully there's somebody smart enough to look at how great this offense was operating when Mike McDaniel first got here and say, hey, what was going on here when Mike McDaniels had this team leading the NFL in yards per game? Is that guy still in there? And make that chance. Take the same chance Steichen took, but hopefully the Dolphins take it and don't just fire him. No, maybe he is worth firing. You know, maybe he picks his own guy and it doesn't work out. But it's a lot easier, I think, to give him 1 more year than to wander around in the jungle for the next 10 when you've already seen glimpses and sparks and seasons where Mike McDaniel has shown you that he can be considered one of the top coaches in this league. I think people forget just 3 years ago, Mike McDaniel was considered a top 5 coach in the league by many people. Every time he was on TV, there was like some kind of special revolving around his personality, and it just shows you how fast people will bury you if things don't go well. Kyle, 100% true. No reason for Lamar or Tua to still be in the game. Yeah, that's funny because that's like true, but for two completely different reasons. Now, Mike McDaniel's first year with the Dolphins was 2022. Miami was 8th in yards per game, 357 yards per game. Let's go to 2023. Miami was 3rd in the NFL. Detroit, who was a juggernaut, right? Detroit was running everybody over. And yet Miami averaged the exact same amount of yards as that Detroit Lions team, and only 2 less than number 1, San Francisco. San Francisco in 2023 had 396 yards per game. Detroit and Miami had 394 yards per game. All I'm saying is San Francisco had Kyle Shanahan that year. Detroit had Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell just lost Ben Johnson and his defensive coordinator in Aaron Glenn. And not a thing changed, which tells you that he is not a product of great coordinators. Dan Campbell is the real deal. But those are the only 2 head coaches that did what he did that year. Those 3 teams were in a league of their own. Kyle Shanahan is still with the Niners. Dan Campbell is still with the Lions and will be for the foreseeable future. And Mike McDaniels, it seems like his future is up for debate. Let's look at points per game. All right. In 2023, Miami was 3rd in the NFL points per game. The 49ers had 0.7, not even a full point more per game. The Niners would go on to the Super Bowl. Dallas was ranked 1st with 30 points per game. And that was the year where Dak Prescott came in 2nd place for MVP. I mean, let's just take a look. The top nine teams in 2023, okay? Green Bay had Matt LaFleur. I find it interesting, too, that number 9 only had 23 points per game. 23 points per game was number 9. This year, 23 points per game takes you to 16th. It's literally mediocre. So anyway, in 2023, it was much fewer points scored. So the Rams were 9th with 23.7. The Packers were 8th with 23.8. The Eagles were 7th with 24.6. Buffalo was 6th with 26.6. Detroit was 5th, 27.4. Baltimore was 4th, 27.7. Miami was 3rd, 27.9. Then the 49ers at 28.6 and the Cowboys at 30.1. So out of that group, the 49ers still have Kyle Shanahan. The Ravens still have John Harbaugh. Detroit has Dan Campbell. Sean McDermott with Buffalo. Eagles still have Nick Sirianni. The Packers still have LaFleur. The Rams still have McVay. And that's it. The only coach in this group that would be gone, Mike McCarthy with Dallas and Mike McDaniels. What do those 2 teams have in common? But let's go to 2024, shall we? Let's see how those defenses did, because Dallas would ultimately fire McCarthy after the 2024 season. And look at that. Dallas, 355 yards allowed, 28th in the NFL. And let me remind you, I was against the Mike McCarthy firing from the jump. I could not believe that they would even entertain firing a head coach that lost his franchise quarterback. This is not just a kind of big deal. We're talking about a quarterback that came in second place in MVP voting, and now he's gone. Of course, the Cowboys sucked it up in 2024. They didn't have their franchise quarterback. What would happen to the Chiefs or the Ravens? Look at the Ravens without Lamar the last couple of weeks. This is insane. So, I'm bringing this up saying Mike McCarthy's the only other coach that has been fired, but I don't agree with that one either, right? I don't think if you're rocking top 3 numbers in the NFL at offense, I think there's a bigger problem going on that we need to figure out. Because it would be one thing if Mike McDaniel hasn't shown you yet, but he has, man. He's done things that only Dan Campbell and Kyle Shanahan have been able to do. And defensively, Miami in 2024 was 6th in yards allowed per game. They were 6th. This year, they're 23rd. This is their worst year defensively. And Mike McDaniel's an offensive guy, right? But the offense isn't looking good either. But the context that I just showed you, no other team has even entertained firing their head coach out of this group besides the Dolphins. And why? Because of a bad year. Remember, they were like, oh, you didn't have playoff success. The dude had to start Skylar Thompson against Buffalo. And he still put up, what was the final score of that game? 28-31? A real nail biter all the way to the end with Skylar Thompson. Look, this is why the fans should not make decisions. They're emotional and they don't know what the hell they're talking about. They just want to get rid of everything. Let's just start it all over. You got to make sure that you're not throwing away the 2025 MVP on your quest for a new quarterback. Because that's exactly what happened to Daniel Jones. And that's exactly what, Kyle Shanahan's going to go somewhere else and succeed. It will happen. I think the Dolphins should figure out what's going on with their defense. Where is it weak? Let's get rid of Tyreek Hill. Let's get rid of these costly weapons. Let's get the right quarterback in place. We got a running back. I like Jalen Waddle. All right, let's get this offensive line, a little more shored up front. And let's bring in a Drew Allar or an Arch Manning or somebody that Arch Manning looks bad so far, but let's bring in a quarterback Mike wants. And then after that season, we'll take a look and say, what does this team look like with a quarterback that can actually see over the offensive line? Or when they're on the 50-yard line at the end of the first half, he doesn't have to pretend to take a sack because he doesn't want to embarrass himself because he can't throw a 50-yard Hail Mary. What would a Mike McDaniel's offense look like with a real quarterback? I think it's worth asking yourself that because Tua has a lot of limitations and he's already a quarterback that has missed 60%, of his career due to concussions. Mike McDaniel's is getting a raw deal. And I think you guys are blind if you don't see it. I mean, he's got players jumping off sides on 4th and 2s. I mean, they're undisciplined, and you could say that's on coaching. Sometimes it's on coaching. Sometimes it's on players. I mean, look at Vic Fangio. He's like, those players just aren't focused. And yeah, I agree. Coaching is where the tone is set. But I think sometimes, Sean Payton calls it, getting through the 3-year, if you can get past year 3, then you're in the club of a legitimate head coach. But most head coaches actually don't make it past year 3. And I think with Mike McDaniel's okay, why is that? Because You make a lot of mistakes your first time being a head coach. Well, wouldn't it be cool if like they gave him an opportunity to learn from his own mistakes without firing him? It's like, hey, you tried to be their buddy. It didn't work out. You know, you sat courtside on the Miami Heat games. You can't be their friend. I feel like Mike McDaniels has learned a lot in the last couple of years, and I think they should give him a chance to try to create a new culture. I'm not a strong believer that you can even do that with the same players, so let him get rid of the players that can adapt, the ones that won't forget how Mike used to be when they were buddies. Cut him, get rid of him, trade him. You know, get a roster that will fully buy in to this new Mike McDaniels and his new culture with his new quarterback. I think you can bring a lot of fresh energy without firing Mike McDaniels.